Good morning. I'm Reverend Karen Einhaus. I'm the spiritual leader of this organization. And how amazing to look out here and out there and say hello and welcome. So there was a woman, and she asked Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, why do you spend so much time in the garden? Why do you spend your time weeding, working in the garden? Surely somebody in this community could be doing that. And you could take your time to write more more sermons, more books. I don't think Thich Nhat Hanh wrote songs. Okay, good. Just wanted to clear that up. You could write more books, more sermons that could then reach people and uplift them. And Thich Nhat Hanh thought about it for a moment, and he said, it is because I take the time to weed, to plant, to clean up the garden, to be engaged in just everyday activity, that I have the space within me to write books and to write sermons. Another person asked him, so how do you practice? How do you practice? And he said, I eat and I sleep. And the person said, so you're no other than any ordinary person. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, when I sleep, I only sleep. And when I eat, I only eat. Ordinary people never only do one thing. They are bound by 10,000 things that are on their minds. So, beloveds, this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about this idea that so many of us have, that there is a mundane, everyday life, things that we do, like we heard in the reading, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, going to church, meeting on Sunday mornings, and then there's this other thing that we might refer to as the sacred, where we really feel the connection to the divine. And I'm here to tell you, there's only one life. There's only one life. And so how then can we feel at any moment and choose at any moment to experience the sacred, even in the very mundane? I think we have a title slide. Oh, there it is. There it is. That happens to be my grandson, who loves to play with color. And then this is a sacred ritual that many are familiar with. And we're going to just be with that. Let's see, perhaps at the end of the talk, what you consider the mundane and the sacred. Before we get started, I really invite us all to take a breath. Maybe even allow yourself to exhale audibly. Maybe just take a moment to allow your eyes to close. This is a safe space. Everybody has their eyes closed. Just breathe. For the only person that can transform the everyday into the sacred is the person that you touch when you put your hands on your heart. And so I invite us to take a moment and ask ourselves, truly, deeply, why am I here? Why am I here? And then just listen. Listen to the answer. All right. And then we come back. Yeah, I don't want to do the glasses today. We come back here, and today we're going to take a look at how can I experience the mundane as sacred. And we're going to look through it through three different points of view, three different vantage points. We're going to look at as a mindset, as an experience of everything that is going on. And then we're going to look at it through the connection gargles. And then lastly, through taking action. And throughout this talk today, you will be invited to participate, so get ready. You ready? Yeah? Okay, good. So let's take a look at our wonderful way of how we look at these different paths that lead us home. For those of you who are not familiar with it, our annual theme is every path leads home. It is the understanding that our awareness, our desire, our saying yes to the calling that has been placed upon our heart, that is what propels us forward on our path. And every person's path is different. Everybody has a different path. Everybody's path looks different, has a different starting point and a different ending point. And that's very important when we look at what is at play today, and that is self-acceptance. I always, always, always want to make sure that we give ourselves self-compassion, because the place from where we start on this spiritual journey of self-acceptance and self-discovery is very different for each person. Breathe that in. Breathe that in. It is so important to remember that we cannot look out at another and say, okay, they have been going to the center for 2.5 years. They have taken 2 classes. They are further away, further along, or not as far along as I am. Comparison is the #1 joy killer. Don't do that. Don't do that. These paths are not designed for us to compare, to look, how fast are you moving on this path? No, it is an invitation, first of all, to self-love, self-acceptance, and work with exactly where you are. The other path we're looking at today is personal responsibility. Yes, personal responsibility. We here at the New Vision Center, we teach the science of mind, and the principles are very clear in that there is a cause and an effect. No question, we don't deal in the realm of sin. As a matter of fact, we understand that we don't need to be punished for our mistakes, what sins really are, right? Mistakes. We don't need to be punished for our mistakes because we are being punished by our mistakes. I'm going to say that again. We don't need anybody, and not ourselves either, to punish us for the mistakes that we made when we didn't know any better. And we are automatically built into this experience called life. We are punished by our mistakes. What does that mean? That means if I make a mistake, if I am showing up with very unskilled behavior and cause some wreck to come into motion, some conflict, something, if I cause something that is not in alignment with who I am and who I desire to be, then I get to deal with the consequences. That's what that means. And so then it behooves us to really take the time and look at this idea to understand, as we are cultivating everyday experiences as sacred, we are uplifting not only our experience, but everybody's. Whenever I teach a class somewhere during the 4, 6, or 8 weeks, I like to teach the 4 kingdoms, the idea of the 4 kingdoms. And I see a lot of students here in the sanctuary and online, and so it's just 4 kingdoms. And the first kingdom is known as the kingdom of victimhood. It is the place where sometimes we wake up. It's sometimes where those spiritual journeys start, because we wake up to the realization that, oh my, it feels like I am just this piece of wood being thrown about by a storm on the ocean, and I have no control of what is going on. That is what is described as this kingdom 1, victimhood, or where life happens to me. Anybody ever been there? Yes, yes. And you know what? If you know that you have been there, you are way ahead of any curve, because you have the awareness that it can be different, because otherwise you wouldn't realize it. So yay! Yeah, that's the only time we yay for victimhood. But that's it. And so then there is the kingdom 2, which is where we uplift ourselves and we are realizing that what happens out there has something to do with what's happening in here. That I control things that are happening by my thoughts. And we see it in mainstream media everywhere, right? It's everywhere. We're realizing that our thoughts create our reality. So that is what we call Kingdom 2, and that is where things are happening because of me. I cause them to happen. It's a very, very helpful state of spiritual evolution. Very different than the victim state. And so often people, especially when they find themselves in this victimhood space, when they feel like I don't have any control, they come and ask me and they say, Reverend Karen, how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I get to a point where I feel with every part of my being that I have control, that I am the captain of my own ship? And they usually don't like the answer. But here we are amongst ourselves. I will share it with you. You ready? Here's what you need to release: blame and shame. It's everyone take a breath. We have to release blame and shame, which is really the same thing of the same coin, right? Blame is outward. It is their fault. Because of that, he did this. No, she did that. She said that. And shame is pointing that towards ourselves. So when we talk about how do we cultivate a mindset where we realize that the mundane, however mundane it is truly sacred, it has the potential to be sacred, we have to remind ourselves that wherever we feel blaming and shaming, we have to let it go. How do you know that you blame somebody? Do you hear yourself complaining sometimes? Hate when that happens. Sometimes things come out of my mouth and I'm like, oh my goodness. No, I am not at the mercy of what's happening out there. I choose to know that I am partly co-creating this reality, and therefore I have the power and, dare I say, the need to take ownership of that and create something different out there. And so then how can we bring this awareness then into creating a connection and being aware of when we are connecting that it is a sacred activity. Turning towards it when we have a conversation with one person, allowing that to be the only conversation, the only thing that is happening. Think about Thich Nhat Hanh. When he says we mortals are so trained to have 10,000 things to take care of, think about, feel, still be connected to all the things. I have to smile because I am so aware of it every Sunday morning when I walk onto this campus. And I just want to be here. I just want to be on the platform, and I want to be available, and I want to share all the things that I have discovered this week. And then I walk in and there are, trash cans overflowing, or there's this happening or that happening. And this morning I said to myself, oh, isn't this interesting? There's the invitation. There's the invitation for me to choose if I engage in the mundane and move something or do something or print something, to see the sacred in there, to understand that it offers me the connection, not only to the divine, but to one another. And so that brings us to how do we look at the sacred in action? In action. Because we are here on this planet Earth, and we are very much in this mesmerizing place where action is needed all the time. And here's what's important about that. We can choose. We can choose to have an action be filled up with the sacred. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching here, said it, I think it was in Love and Law. And he said, well, I'm going to paraphrase, it's somewhere in the notes. He said, every morning or every day without fail, he takes a moment and connect with the allness of life. I think he called it the universal allness. He allowed himself to feel one with industries and commerce and nature and things that are happening in the world. And he really took the time to feel himself be so connected to all of it. And he said, when you do that, it allows you to connect and become one with the stars and to see, to really see. Now, what does that remind us of? Our spiritual mind treatment, right? Where are my students? Power of your word class, foundations, right? So the spiritual mind treatment, the first step of our affirmative prayer is where we do exactly that. Where we feel, where we allow ourselves to give way, have the human Karen give way and feel the honest of life. And then we bring it into our experience as we step into the unification. Dr. Ernest Holmes, and this might surprise some, did not wake up and said, oh, I'm going to do a spiritual mind treatment. No, he didn't. He actually worked all the time on being so one in the one that he didn't have to go through those first 2 steps of treatment. He was so aware that there is one power that is greater than we are and that we can use it. He didn't have to do the recognition state and then go into the unification state. To say, if there's only one, then I am in it, it has its being through me. He lived from that place. And that is what allows us, when we are able to do that, that is what allows us to experience everything as sacred. Because it truly is. It is truly sacred. Every interaction, every experience. If we are all made in the image and liking of the divine, and if there is only one, then every interaction is sacred. There's that beautiful song that goes, everywhere is holy ground. For where I stand is holy ground. Not because of me, where each and every one of us stands is holy ground. And so then how do we take that and bring that into action? We have an opportunity right now here in the sanctuary in front of you, and for those of you who sit in the first row, find behind you, there are these wonderful note cards. Everybody has one. And the invitation is to have an action of actually writing down an area of your life, something that rises up, where you want to bring this awareness of the sacred in the mundane to your life. Do it now. I'm not going to say anything for 2 minutes. You're not going to miss anything. Those online, of course, please find a piece of paper or use your phone. Here we go, Buzz. My dear. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I have one for you too. 2 minutes. Write it down. There should be pens. Here you go. Write something down, just something that reminds you, this is what I am going to go ahead. This is where I'm going to practice. This is where I'm going to do it. Another 35 seconds, everyone. Something, just a bullet point. something you recognize as sacred, even if it is something that before you didn't think about as sacred. And we're going to wrap that up. Take that with you. Put it somewhere where you're going to come across it. And let us go ahead and anchor in our affirmation together. I'm going to come down here. Another thing that can support us as we go through our day. Let's say it together. I open myself up to the adventure of finding the sacred in my everyday life. Again, I open myself up to the adventure of finding the sacred in my everyday life. Yes, yeah, because it is everywhere. And it takes a changed mindset for us to notice it. One of the things when Reverend Leslie and I planned this Sunday, we talked about that love songs are such a great practice of this. Do you know that sometimes when you don't have the love of your life in your life at the moment and you hear a love song, at least I used to do that, I would be like, oh, I want that. Oh, yep. I got fellow travelers here, I can feel it, right? Here is the invitation. When we hear a love song, hear the divine singing to you. The divine singing to you. So this is actually our mission possible, should you accept it, is this. Observe the world, your experience, your interaction, everything that's happening through the lens of the sacred, from this place of knowing the sacredness is right where you are. Next Sunday, we're having Good News Sunday. Have you heard about that? We are collecting good news from everybody, and we're going to practice for a whole morning to enjoy each other's good news, to uplift us and to open us up for our good news to have an easier way to come to us. Because that is what this invitation is. The love of the divine, the eternal loving kindness of sweet spirit is always right where we are. It's everywhere present. And what we are invited to do is opening our hearts and let it in. And we're going to do that together right now. Please join me as I speak a spiritual mind treatment. As I allow myself to open up and lean into the allness of life, that place of the Most High, love, peace, harmony, abundance, joy. It is flowing so freely, and how grateful I am that I know the tools to step into it and to realize and recognize that I am of it. And as that is the truth of myself, it is the truth of every person, every being within the sound of my voice. Every being is the divine. How grateful I am. How grateful I am to know that this freedom is available to each person. That each of us is invited and able to lay down whatever bondage has come before, and that we recognize and realize that the sacred is right where I am. I know this truth for every person who has placed a prayer in our prayer ministry here at New Vision Center. Every person that is looking to hear an answer, I trust that they are hearing the divine saying, yes, yes, my beloved. It is already so. And so together we know this truth. We let it be with great gratitude in our heart and simply say, and so it is.